All right, Lori. So do you see that it's recording?
I do.
Okay, great. All right. So thank you for entering into this conversation with me. I appreciate it. I want to address the audience that's watching this. I appreciate you being willing to have this conversation for the sake of helping others that have struggled in the ways that you've been struggling. And I honor you for that. I'm excited to talk about this with you. My name is David Zappasodi. For those of you who don't know me, I am the founder of Brain Flip Weight Loss, where we help people to reprogram all their food struggles to literally not exist anymore and to lose all the weight and keep it off for good. Um, this is a program of very deep transformation, and there's three phases people go through in it. And today I am having Lori Hartlob on. I said that correctly, right? Hartlob?
You did. You
Okay.
did.
Okay, great.
You know me well.
Yes, yes. Lori Hartlob, she's been in my program for a few months, several months or something like that. And in my program, there's three phases that people go through. In the first phase, we're flipping all addictions to desires for unhealthy foods, food cravings, stuff like that. That can include binge eating, things along those lines as well. That all gets flipped completely, and a person's totally free of all those struggles, no matter how long they've had them in the past. In the second phase, we flip overeating and snacking, and we get into a nice rhythmic eating pattern that's aligned with the body we want to have and the life we want to live. So that's what we do in the second phase. Third phase is about weight loss, where we're losing the weight, keeping it off for good. We're not focused on weight loss at all during any other part of the process. This is a weight loss program that is not at all about weight loss. And you'll hear us talking about that in this conversation because it's very enlightening to hear about it and it's very awakening to go through it. That's for sure. For you and me, both, Lori, right?
That's
Um,
right.
so Lori is, I'd like for her to share in her intro some of the specifics of like her age, weight, like what she's gone through when she was first entering into this program. And then I want to talk about where she is in those phases. And just so you all know, she's in the third phase of the program. I like to actually interview clients while they're going through the program so that you can see the journey as they're going through it rather than just getting them to the end and then they have to recall back what shoot they were experiencing, which oftentimes feels very inauthentic. So Lori is a very heart-centered person. I love working with Lori. She's very, very sweet in her energy. She's a grandmom. Her granddaughter comes on, and I enjoy seeing her. My daughter is a few years older than your granddaughter, but it's nice to see that on the coachings. Um, Lori's very self-aware. She knows that she has struggled with these issues with food and with body weight for quite a while, and she knows that there's more to it than just restricting your calories and working harder. Like she came to me knowing like there's got to be more than just that. And so I'm excited to have Lori on. And Lori, I want to ask you to begin with if you could just add to my intro of you anything that you'd like to share.
Sure. So I'm kind of reaching out to the audience who's sitting there listening to this and has questions in their head. And I imagine that they've experienced a lot of things that I've experienced in weight loss. You're an intelligent individual. You have tons of information and you read a lot and you investigate. And you probably can look at everywhere else in your life and go, but I'm successful in these other places. I'm successful in relationships. I was successful in a career. Anything I put my mind to, I can do. This is not because of laziness or not following all the steps that are given to you. You've done it all, and the results just failed. And that takes a certain level of strength and resilience that everyone listening they can identify with.
Yeah.
And so I came to you promising myself that I'm not giving up on myself. I had just completed my first total knee replacements 7 weeks prior to talking to you, and I was in between the time because I gave myself a 9 week buffer. Got the first one done, going into the second one. So 2 weeks prior to second knee surgery, why not sign up to another program yet? I just have a few things to do, like recover from 2 knee surgeries and go through PT, and stressed out about sitting around, and there's going to be food in my house, and I'm going to be bored, and I'm going to be in pain, and I'm going to be stressed out. So why not do one more thing, right? But here's what I did know. I had promised myself that it wasn't going to end with a knee surgery, and somehow, some way, I was going to get the health and vitality back that I wanted for myself, and I'm not giving up. And I saw you on Facebook. And let me tell you, I was listening for any bit of over promising, right? I've been through all these diets. What do you know, David, that I don't know? That's what I was listening for. And you captured me because you understood that there was a component of this that was far more than the nutrition, far more than exercise. And I knew that the problem was sitting inward. And until I addressed that problem, I recognized that. But no one to this point, I've been with so many people, and I've retired from healthcare. No one had the tools and the insight and the instructions for me to get to that root cause. Nobody else could do it. There's many programs out there. There's pills out there. There are things that talk about it, but the tools aren't lasting. And life keeps coming. So that's how I got to you. And I'm so thankful I did.
I'm so thankful that you did as well. So let's dive into it. I want to ask you a few specifics just so that you're relatable to people listening. How old are you right now?
I'm 58 years old.
You're 58 years old. Okay, so you're 58 years old. And then the weight that you started in the program in, what do you know, remember what that weight
I
was?
do. I do. It's the highest weight I've ever been at, 245 pounds.
245 pounds. Okay. So you came in at the highest that you've ever been, 245, and you're how tall? 5'3"? Is that right?
5'5".
5'5".
5'5".
Okay, you're 5'5". And what's your goal weight?
This number sounds so crazy. 119 pounds.
Okay, so 119 at 5'5". Um, I've had it happen before. Can happen with you if that's what you want. So that's exciting. So we're looking at about what is that, 130 pounds total? Yeah, okay. So 130 pounds, or 120 pounds, I think it is,
Yeah.
right? 120. So we're looking at 120-pound weight loss. And tell me about like the food struggles you were dealing with. Like what were the specific, we know the weight. So now let's
Right.
talk about food. Like
So,
let's start with desires for unhealthy foods. Like what do you feel was the biggest for you? Was it more cravings for unhealthy foods or overeating with healthy foods, would you say?
so over the years, I had just gotten so restrictive, so
Okay.
restrictive. So there was that.
So there were
So
strong cravings for unhealthy foods, right?
100%. And the way to deal with that was just sheer willpower, which took so much energy. But then you mentioned both ends of that. Cravings. Well, you can control the cravings for so long. That's like, pushing that beach ball under the water. Eventually, the pressures of life and stress, it's going to pop back up. And when that happened, then it was sugar
Right. Okay.
or junk food, because they were the foods that we just push way out of our existence. So
What were some of those sorry to cut you off, but what were some of
yeah, yeah.
those specific foods before we move further?
So the things that I would go back to that I've never been able to totally flesh out of my life. Ice cream, especially ice cream in season. It's summertime right now, and wintertime doesn't bother me. But as soon as we got that nice warm day associated with vacation and time of year, pizza. Pizza
Okay.
was a big one. I've never been to flesh out of my life. And then if I'm under a lot of stress, a lot of stress, donuts will do it. No other time do I care, but there's like a long history of a donut, not a lot, but it was the indulgence that kind of pushed down the stressors.
Got it. Okay.
And
Now, were there also desires for like chocolate or candy or any of that? Like, is that what you're referring to when you
yeah,
say sugar?
yeah, probably more baked goods, like fine pastry type of
Got it.
thing.
Okay. So more of that kind
So
of stuff rather
yeah,
than like
yeah,
straight chocolate. Did you swing towards
yeah.
salty, like chips, pretzels, popcorn, anything? Fast
So
food? Fast food
in
was
the
one, right?
not usually,
No. Okay.
I'm more, so I was more of a foodie. I
Okay.
want good food, not junk food kind
Got
of
it. Okay.
thing. And I have noticed, so if you would look at, the breadth of my life, I would say sugar was the issue. But somehow after menopause, salty did become an issue in a way that it never did. I could
Okay.
have chips and all that around, never bothered me.
Okay.
So it's interesting how it changes.
So when you first joined the program, you were dealing with the sweet and
But
salty.
yes,
Actually, flip
yeah,
both of them.
definitely
Okay.
was.
Okay.
Definitely was.
Now, about how long did it take for you to flip it? And everyone listening, when I say flip, I'm talking about
How to
doing an
change that.
actual brain flip where we're reprogramming her brain to be able to be around that junk food or that unhealthy food and to not desire it anymore. Like to get to the real crux of what's going on, reprogram it at the core, at the absolute root, so that there's no longer any need to resist because there's no desire there anymore that you need to resist against. Lori, when
Well,
you went through that
mhm.
process, about how long did it take for you to completely flip unhealthy cravings? Not that we had covered every single association that could
No.
possibly come up with where you knew I'm in complete control of this. I know exactly what I'm doing.
So it was shocking because one, I was scared to death to do exactly what you were telling me to do,
Yeah.
right? What if I gain doing it? So the reason it took me 2 weeks is it took me a good 4 days to wrap my head around doing exactly what you're telling me to do. You were opening in the brain's point of view, you were opening Pandora's box, and that scared the daylights out of me.
Right.
So
It
it took
usually
four
does.
days of you telling me, do it, do it, do it.
Right.
Once I did it, so from the time we started to the flip, it was done in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Before I went into surgery, cravings were gone,
Do you remember when you
absolutely
do you
gone.
remember when you first joined the program, what I told you the average length of time is?
I don't.
I told you it was 2 to 3 weeks. That's the
Oh,
average. Yeah. And if you looked on all my marketing, it said that in
yeah,
there too,
yeah,
like
yeah.
the average length of time for the cravings flip is 2 to 3 weeks. So you were on like the low end of average. I know that most people listening to this, that's going to sound like really, really, really fast. Um, but that's the great thing about it is that because it's an actual physical reprogramming, it doesn't matter how mentally you create a story around how long it's been an issue. The length of time doesn't make a difference. All that matters is what we're doing in the moment that we're actually eating the food. So when Lori talks about being scared to do it, in the program, you actually eat junk food on purpose, but you reprogram the way you eat it to no longer have a desire for it. That's what ends up happening in that first brain flip. Took you about
Yeah.
2 weeks. Now, at that point, tell me what it felt like to be in control and what that was different from what you were experiencing before. Just like a quick summary.
Yeah. So it was like a huge sigh of relief because the way I'd functioned in the past was control and willpower. And I was exhausted from living that way. And I could feel the toll of that exhaustion. So the freedom that came after flipping this food, we had gone into this was in November. So we were going into the holidays. And that ends up being a struggle for most people who have weight issues. And I remember talking to you after Thanksgiving going, holy cow, that I just celebrated with family on a food related holiday with zero food issues. I didn't go into the holiday stressing and planning, like, well, I'll do this or I'll prepare that so I make it through and I don't gain weight. There was none of that.
Yeah.
And I could just connect and celebrate. So now, after that experience, I was looking forward to Christmas coming because I wanted to see if it still worked. And it did. It did.
What was it like for you to not desire those things that you desired before? Could you kind of like put that into words for people, or is it kind of difficult to do that?
No, no, it's not at all because you have it has a power. To me, the food felt like it had a power that was that I was constantly resisting or navigating around. And with that removed, then connecting and baking cookies with my grandkids was just sheer joy. It was no more obstacle. It was
Yeah.
just the joy. Now, I had been through other programs and I had faced holidays and baking cookies with the kids, and it wasn't that way. The holding back the food and the cravings diminished it.
Right.
And I was exhausted afterwards. But I was like a kid again and just playing and creating and having fun and not worrying about the mess and just delighting in the connection and the activity with the kids
Yeah.
and no worries. And then no guilt and aftermath afterwards assessing, did I do it right? Did I mess up? Can I do it again? I could just experience the moment and have a great time doing it.
Isn't it amazing how just the removal of desire through reprogramming your brain creates all of these shifts in like the
It does.
actualization of how you're living in your everyday
It
lived
does.
experience?
That and also it removes, so I had a lot of anxiety around my weight issues, right? And realizing that I didn't have to control myself all the time. I didn't have to have this ridiculous expectation of perfection because if if something else came up, like a new situation that I associated with, maybe around a holiday or something, something I didn't quite catch on that flipping of cravings, that I had the tools at my fingertips. So even if something pops up in the future, it's not taking me back to those days where I had to control and resist. I have tools that
Yeah.
I can use and keep my freedom and my peace. And I think I remember telling you at Thanksgiving, if the only thing I get out of this program is that, it was worth every penny.
Yeah.
But I came to you for weight loss.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, great. So let's move on now. I think people have a good sense of like the flavor of what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I often say this, I'm sure you've heard me say it many times in coachings, that when people are like listening to this, like people that are listening to this right now, one of the common questions they're going to ask is like, am I able to do that? Right? Like, is that something I'm capable of doing? And the funny thing about that question is that when you use a process that actually gets to the root of the issue, you can only be capable of it. You're not
Yeah.
able to be capable of something. You're not unable to be capable of something that would actually get to the root of the issue. This is
Yeah.
something that everyone can do. Now, let's talk about the experience with overeating. Because once you've flipped all the junk foods, all the unhealthy cravings, you're able to be at celebrations and holidays and get-togethers, and there's no desire. There's all this freedom, right? Now we're dealing with overeating with healthy foods, if we have issues with that, and with snacking in between meals. So for you, what was that like struggle like before, like when you were entering into the program?
So because of my mentality and thought process around it, I lived mostly that restrictive side, but eventually it would swing the other way, right? And when
Boomerang.
life just got lifey, you just want to break from it,
Yeah.
right? And food was a great mechanism, a coping mechanism to just pull out of the stress for just a little while. There was a pleasure and a reward to it. The
Yeah.
very thing that I wanted to stop doing at that moment was a pleasure and a reward. It didn't happen very often, but it didn't matter. It happened.
Right.
And every time it happened, it reinforced that coping mechanism. So I could go a pretty long time, but life would continue to happen and eventually I'd overeat. So
Yeah.
when you describe um, in the program that's something we were going to tackle. I was very interested in that because I really don't want to be controlled by food. I want food to have its rightful, proper place in my life. And I want to have a fluid life, a flexible life where I can deal with the stressors without coping through food. And then you took us through that process, and everyone gets. Can I give away this part of the program that everybody begs you to please, please take away the extra food? I can't
Yes.
take it. Take it away.
So let me just give some context around what Lori's talking about here. When we do the overeating flip, the second brain flip, which is overeating and snacking, you're not eating more food than you normally do. You eat the same amounts. So if you're overeating, you're eating the same overeating amount. But then what's happening is that as you reprogram the brain, that amount feels larger and larger and more difficult to sustain until you get to a point that you need to drop the extra amount that you're eating and actually eat smaller portions. But there's no the challenge of the flip is to what it's really doing on a deep level is it's taking the concept of eating less food and instead of equating it to misery and restriction, equating it to joy and fulfillment. That's what we're actually doing in that flip. And so in that one, there's a little bit more complexity to it in terms of what we're doing, but basically they're eating two different portions. They're creating the same amount of food they would normally eat. They're programming a certain amount of that to be satisfying and the other part to not be satisfying, to be over full, and uncomfortable, and that we program it to be uncomfortable to overeat. And the more uncomfortable it becomes, the more that eating less becomes the freedom rather than the restriction. So that's what we're doing there. So how long did that process take for you? How long did it take for you to get to the portion time to the place where I was like, all right, you're now ready to drop the second portion? About how long did that take?
I don't even think I completed a full 7 days of it. I think by day five, because I wrote down in my notes that it was completed in under a week, and I was grateful. I was
Yeah,
so grateful.
yeah, yeah. Um, in the program I have, or in like the different messaging that's out there, I've talked a lot about the second brain flip. The average length of time is about a week and a half to 2 weeks. So you're in that range where like we got to about 7 days or 6 days where we had you drop your extra portions. Like it was difficult enough that I was like, okay, the programming's good, you can drop it. And then you're like excited out of your mind, right? Because you can eat
Oh my
less
goodness.
at that
Oh my
point, which
goodness.
is really funny. It's such a like that's oftentimes one of my funnest flips to take people through because it's such a radical shift to like, oh my God, eating less food is amazing. Like, and it's hysterical. It's so funny that that ends up being the end result is like all that mentality around refining and or like
Yeah.
constricting and portioning, like all that stuff's no longer even relevant in our life anymore. It doesn't mean anything. So it took 7 days and then you went through like 7 days at the smaller portions and stabilizing that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So about roughly about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what was your experience like with that? A little bit.
So it kind of became a
Like
joke.
what I'm
So
like what I mean is
I
like the end result of
it's
it.
good. The end result, my husband cracked up and said, we're gonna save money on grocery bills big time because, his wife is a foodie who cooks a lot and maybe kind of cooks fancy food. And now we're two flips in, and I'm really happy with simple food, right? I'm not plugging those cravings, and I'm not making as much food as I used to. And fortunately, he's a real simple eater. So what he notices, like, wow, there's not as much food coming through this house.
Hmm.
right? So we're gonna save money. So, maybe we don't have to worry so much about our retirement, right? We're saving a little bit here and it's a
Yeah.
little bit easier. And
It can be a significant
it
shift.
is.
It can be
It
for
is.
some
And
people
then
significant financial shift. There are some people that like they're saving like $20 a day, and like if they're indulging in cravings multiple times a day and like things like that, there are some people spending quite a bit more too.
and um and we've been married for 38 years, so he knows me. He can read it on my face. He knows how I respond to things, and he's like, you're getting really relaxed about around food. Because he knows in a program at this point, right? It's exciting in the beginning, but he's kind of mentally keeping track, going, oh, this is where it's going to start getting challenging, right? The fun wears off a bit. And he's like, you're really relaxing around food. And then would ask some questions. And around this house, everyone hears David said, and it starts really great conversations. So, the practices and the tools that you've given me has also extended to my family because they know me, right? And they're observing these big changes. And that's why I want to share with other people as well, because this weight issues, that living in those patterns of heaviness, it's a real thing. And a lot of people are struggling with it and they're coming vulnerable to these programs. We live in an information age, there's so much out there. This program is not a series of hacks that
Yeah.
you run like a hamster wheel, chasing after maybe this will work and maybe that will work. That's not where we are in this. This is peace and healing for your whole entire self.
But they are hacks too, though, right? Like there are actual the
There
brain
are
trips are
hacks.
like
There,
we're actually hacking the brain if you think
yeah,
about what we're doing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
But
that
I
is
don't have to
there.
go. I don't have to chase the newest one. And you're right. When I listened to you initially, there's nothing so foreign. People don't need to be afraid. You're not asking them to do something that's so strange that they never heard of.
Right.
Because I've heard some of these things and I've applied some of these things.
Hmm.
The difference is the holistic integration of everything in the right pattern. You do a brilliant job of creating the space for people to turn inward and apply these methods as it works for them. So maybe someone's listening going, well, I don't have the situation she does. That's okay. This is how the program you present has helped me to apply for myself. But these strategies are applicable for everyone. You're
And
gonna you're gonna attach it personally. Right.
and there's other like clients going through the program that are in very different, like you see
Right.
these people
Right.
that are like going through very different, but it's kind of interesting though because even though we're all going through different stuff, at the root it's all the same thing, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the funny thing about it.
Oh, you bring up a good point.
That's why a common thing I'll tell people, like I've seen and I've said in marketing messages in the past, people can find it out there, is that when people lose weight with me, their whole life becomes lighter because it has to. Like when you're actually getting into the actual root of weight loss, of becoming light, you can't help but to become light in other areas of life as well. And if you're not, it's not actually getting to the root of the issue,
Right.
you know? So okay, so let's move on. All right. So we flipped cravings, we flipped overeating. You're now eating about how much less are you eating from what you were eating before? Was it like a half or a third or something?
I was eating a third of what I was eating before. And why that is so profound is I was an adamant weigh and measure person.
Yeah,
My security was on that scale,
right.
and that was a safe and appropriate portion. And
Right.
as long as I did all those things, but you and I both know, like you said, you can overeat on healthy food, but it didn't make sense, right? I was living to a
So we
scale.
brought the scale into you. Like you became the scale yourself. Like you
Yes.
were able to
Yep.
calibrate within yourself with it.
Yes.
That's the
And
flip.
there's such peace with that. So it doesn't matter where I am.
Right.
Doesn't matter if I'm
Now,
a restaurant, right?
now
Go
this is
ahead.
a good now this is a good segue into the third phase. All right.
Okay.
So in the third phase, I want people to know we're not weighing ourselves. People don't weigh themselves in this program. In this
No.
program, you weigh yourself in the beginning to get a baseline weight so that we can know what we're starting with. And then we don't have you actually weigh in the program until you think you've reached your goal to your satisfaction, knowing you're not getting the weight back any more than you could forget how to read. When you are that sure of where you are, that's when we actually weigh you. We don't do anything before that because believe it or not, to weigh yourself is to create a heavy self identity. It's actually a part of the heavy identity to measure and weigh to see if we're making progress. I say it's a heavy identity because once a person has already reached their goal and they know they're there and weight is literally a non-issue in their life, they're not stepping on the scale to see what they weigh. They don't care. When people graduate my program, they could care less what the scale says at that point. The only reason they even weigh is for my sake because I want to know. And some people do want to know. They're interested to
Yeah.
know. Like it's more about looking at how well are you embodying your visualization? How close is that to the reality? That's really just
Yeah.
it's a benchmark for progress we can make with our embodied visualization practices that we do. So anyway, um, like we talked about in the beginning, you had about 120 pounds to lose. Now I know you're not weighing through this process, so you have no idea what you actually weigh right now. But I think I remember I think you were telling me yesterday, I believe that um in terms of like clothing sizes
Hmm.
decreasing, it would
Hmm.
be around 40 pounds weight loss, something like that, around that
Probably
ballpark.
about 40, probably 45 pounds.
45.
Um, and that 45 pounds I had lost. I remember when I lost it the last time, and I remember how I lost it. And it was arduous and it was painful. And I lived on that scale every day, hoping and praying. And, until we talked about it yesterday, I didn't really even think about it. I didn't think about it. And then I went, oh, wait, judging by the clothing that I'm in right now, I know exactly where I would be, and it's 45 pounds away. And I think about when I lost it, not that terribly long ago, and now losing it this time. And the experiences couldn't be any different. And that way that I lost it was considered a healthy way of losing it. And it probably was by other people's standards. But I would say the way that weight has released in this program is the healthiest physically, mentally that I've ever lost weight in my life.
And
And
let
I'm
me
not stressing about it.
ask you this, Lori. How much did we focus on weight loss through this have we focused on weight loss through the process that you've gone through so far? Just so everyone understands for context, Lori is about a third of the way through the third phase. All right. So like in terms of her actual weight that she wants to lose, she's roughly about a third of the way through. She's advanced in terms of like she's doing all the practices correctly. So she's a very advanced, I'll just edify you right now. You are very
Thank
advanced
you.
in the program. Like you're very aware of what you're doing. You're doing a great job with the actual flips that you're working on and refining and refining and refining your process and becoming lighter, basically, right?
Yeah.
So you're very advanced in that way, but you're in terms of the actual weight loss, you're about a third of the way through. So
Right.
we're looking at about another 75, 80 pounds of actual weight loss to go for you, which like that's exciting, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
big shift. But the
Yeah.
question is, for the amount of weight that you have lost so far, you've lost 45. That's a good amount of weight so far,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Estimate,
It,
because we don't know for sure.
yeah, I don't
But
know for
here's
sure.
but here's the question, like, what does it feel like to have done that, to lost about 45 pounds without in any way focusing on weight loss?
It's almost inconceivable. If I wouldn't be living it, I'd probably have some question outwardly.
We have such a strong
But
addiction to overweightness, like losing
yes,
weight needs to be a struggle.
yes.
Yeah.
And I love those kind of things that you bring up. You've helped me tremendously to identify these subtle ways that I've kept the heaviness completely outside of my perspective. So it's not just the weight loss. The weight loss is incredible. But when you ask me about this total experience, what has it been like to lose 45 pounds? I've lost the 45 pounds, and that's amazing when I get on clothing and things like that. But what's even more profound for me is my quality of life. I had a good life before I met you. I really did. I didn't perceive myself as a unsatisfied person, or I have many things to be grateful for. But this program has changed my life, not just my weight. So the way I face the day is a lot lighter than I did before. And the weight just happens to be another factor in that. I'm enjoying life in ways that I never dreamed that I would be enjoying life, and not dealing with stress, not feeling like I mean, I'm a planner and a controller by personality, and I'm really loving and enjoying life.
What's it like for you to be going through this and knowing your body's getting smaller, but not focusing on it at all? Like, is that a weird experience for you?
It is. It is. You know how people talk about the
And,
glass ceiling?
and just to understand, everyone listening, this is what Lori's actually programming herself for. In the third phase, we program the brain to live from the goal rather than trying to get to the goal, because trying to get to the goal is a heavy identity. Living from the goal is a lighter identity. So we're literally flipping the brain and the mind in that direction. There's a lot of identity work. There's also physical work we do as well, but we program it to be enjoyable and fulfilling. So that's what Lori's actually going through. So, like, is it weird for you to have lost 45 pounds and literally done it through systematically not thinking about it less and more and more?
Yes. Where it kind of gets me that I'm so aware of it is if someone mentions it. If
Yeah.
someone mentions, because it doesn't occur to me, I'm not tracking it. Um, and so when someone mentions like, you're looking different, and they ask if I've lost weight or how I'm doing, and people who know me know that I do everything to lose weight, right? So they're
Right.
really curious. If there's a change in me, someone's asking a question like, what was the thing that worked? Because if you
Right.
know me well, you know I've done a lot of things, and it's been a struggle.
Yeah.
So so the first question is like, wait, I didn't hear you were doing anything, right? And then there's more questions, and then I try to give a an explanation of what we're doing and how incredible it is. But I also encapsulate like I came to it for the weight loss, right? But I'm totally in for the transformation
Yeah.
and the life that the tools it's giving me to create the life I want.
Yeah. That's the beauty of the weight loss flip as well. And I think you're starting to experience it really deeply, is that like you can lose the weight and just be thankful that you did, rather
Mm-hmm.
than like and be and that's the thing, is like you're programming the brain to be thankful for it before you even have it. And the more you do that, the more you end up having it, right?
Yeah.
So like that's really the kind of profound thing about it. It's a very different way about thinking about losing weight. Um, so yeah, and like this is such an amazing story. I feel like this is going to inspire so many people, Lori. Thank you for sharing all this. I want to
Oh,
know, like,
thank you.
what do
I
you
hope
want
it
to
does. I hope it does.
yeah, and listen, for anyone listening to this right now, if you want to find out more about like how Lori has flipped like unhealthy cravings and overeating and weight loss, like if how she's actually doing that, I've created a 22-minute and 22-second video. I didn't plan for it to be exactly that, but that's what it ended up being. It's so funny. It's 22 minutes and 22 seconds. The free video where I actually talk to you directly about how this all works and like how we actually get to the root of the issue so you can have an understanding of the changes you just heard Lori talking about that might seem impossible, but they're absolutely not. Almost everyone that comes into this program is excited or hopeful after hearing me talk and like the things that I share in this free 22-minute training. But there's also still like a seed of doubt, like, can this really work for me? And that's the great thing about it, is that like it works whether you believe it will or not, because you're actually
Yeah.
fundamentally capable of doing everything. Like, even though she talked about that there were some things that were uncomfortable to do, there's nothing that I have anyone do that they're not fully capable of doing. That's the core of all of it. Because it gets to the root, you have to be capable of doing it. Watch that video. You can click, if there's a button below, like a learn more, you can click on that. Or if this is a post on Facebook, it might be like, we'll put the link as the first comment in the comment section if it's an organic post. But you can click the button or the link to sign up for that training. And Lori, I just want to ask, like, is there anything you want to share in closing to everyone that we haven't talked about, or like why this might be a good idea for them to take part in if they're interested?
So I would encourage anyone who's listened to this point, I'm going to guess that something resonated. And maybe there's part of the brain that's trying to keep them from taking chances. And like you said, I'm just going to say 100% I agree with you. There is nothing in this program that is asking you to do something beyond your ability. In fact, I would venture to say, with all the programs out there, this is the easiest to apply to your life. It doesn't matter. Are you working? You have kids, you have family. I don't know what's in your life, but this will fit into your life, and it will free up space in your life. And you will be able to apply these things to everything you need for your journey. And I would just encourage you to take the chance on yourself and move forward and find out more and get involved. And there's a great community here. So you're not just relying on David, even though he's amazing and he's always been there for every crazy question I have or hesitation. He's always there and just incredibly compassionate, supportive, smart as a whip. I love you for that. And there's a community too. So you're with like-minded people. And there are times when I can't get in the call, but I'll just listen to the recording. And it's amazing what insights you get. Listen to other people and their experience. And you'll have those nuggets to apply for yourself as well. So I can't say enough great things about the program.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate that. I couldn't have said it better myself. So anyone interested, go ahead and click on the button or the link in the comments to see that free 22-minute and 22-second training. Pretty funny. Um, Beating that to death now, right? Really doesn't make a difference. But I share from the heart what I have to share. And I appreciate you all being here. Go ahead and click the link and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.